In this section, we are going to be talking about what the heart is from a psychic point of view. This is very important because what makes you suffer the most when you separate yourself from a failed relationship is precisely that part of your psyche which alters your entire psychic system and with it, your life completely. So let's start by making the distinction between the physical heart, which is the organ of your body that pumps blood and with it oxygen to your entire body, and the psychic heart, which is an organ of your psyche which generates emotions, physical sensations, thoughts, and feelings. That's why I told you that if your psychic heart is altered, your entire system will be altered. You will generate negative emotions, toxic thoughts, unpleasant sensations, and feelings that will induce you to carry out actions that will harm you over time. If you notice, if the psychic heart is altered, your physical heart also begins to suffer. Many of the physical illnesses that somatize some people are a consequence of emotional illnesses. You suffer so much throughout your life that at some point your physical heart begins to be altered because your psychic heart is what causes you to experience emotions or feelings which alter your moods and with it the physical sensations that you may be experiencing, perceiving in some moments of your life. There is the explanation of why it is so important to heal a psychic heart when you develop any of the diseases that I am going to show you later. And above all, learn to strengthen your heart. Many people suffer a relationship breakup and spend years with a broken heart that do not undergo a healing process, and that, as the years go by, only causes your entire mental and physical system to begin to suffer. So, we have already established that there is a difference between a physical heart and the psychic heart, and that this psychic heart is an energy system that, like your physical heart, regulates and pumps something. But what is it that pumps this psychic heart? If the physical heart pumps blood and with it oxygen, your psychic heart is the organ of your psyche that is responsible for pumping physical sensations, which in turn generates emotion, and which in turn activates thoughts, and which finally provoke the thoughts that lead you to act in some way in your life, which usually be harmful to you in case this heart is not in a state of balance. On other to all of the above, this heart is the one that will cause some type of damage to your physical heart due to those emotions that you cannot control. Precisely because of the diseases that I am going to talk to you about later. Now, this psychic heart, on an external level, is usually activated by some type of bond that you generate towards another person. Here we enter our topic. That romantic bond that you generate for someone is what makes you feel that physical sensation in your chest, which can be characterized as pleasure when the relationship works perfectly, or pain in case the relationship suffers from a break or breaks down permanently. You must keep in mind that your heart is always active, even when you are not in a romantic relationship. That heart that is activated by those bonds, those emotional relationships, is what leads you to feel happiness if you have a very beautiful bond with your parents or with some of your siblings. But what happens if that bond causes you suffering? Well, you can now begin to observe how your heart changes over the years. But even your heart could generate some kind of bond to entire groups. For example, those people who develop an emotional bond towards their nations or towards social groups in which they interact. But what happens if you have a toxic relationship even with your nation or the groups of friends you interact with? Your heart could also be resentful due to the disappointments you suffer throughout your life. That's why, if you look closely, there are people who give their hearts to this bond that I am talking about to groups or nations. There are people who give their lives for their nation because of that bond. But sometimes nations betray such people. And this is where heart diseases begin to emerge, which even affect these levels. Think about those people who have generated an emotional bond in their jobs. They give their lives for the institution they work for, but what happens when that institution gets rid of them without any concern for that person's feelings? Clearly, the heart is altered, which is precisely what is worked on in psychic cardiology. We help you solve the problems of your wounded heart. Now, that heart, which pumps physical sensations and is an organ of psychic energy, is activated due to two factors that influence in it. First of all, for your own reality. Those experiences that you live in your daily life and that generate that sense of pleasure or disappointment depending on the experience you live. You can have a very stable and beautiful relationship with your romantic partner, which will make you feel happy. But what happens if you have a fight with that person from your external world that leads to your heart feeling happy? The energy will change, and therefore the sensations that your psychic heart will begin to pump throughout your system will change. But on the other hand, we have your unconscious, which is the other factor that activates your psychic heart. The unconscious, which is what is worked on in psychoanalysis, is a part of the psyche which generates thoughts without you knowing that it is doing so. It is the remnant of all the negative and positive experiences you had at some point in your life. And they were repressed, for example, if one of your parents punished you very unfairly. Over time, you forgot it. You left it there. But that bad experience continues to affect your life without you knowing it. Those relationship breakups that you apparently overcame remain in your unconscious like notes in your psyche, and from time to time, they are activated again to generate physical sensations that hurt you. As you can infer, if you do not treat the psychic heart when it goes into imbalance, it will be controlled by the unconscious and the experiences of your real world that affect you, with which you could become linked because that is the main function that the psychic heart fulfills, linking you and pumping sensations which promote that link with other people who are going to hurt you, because if you look closely, it is your psychic heart, the one who seeks to feel loved and connected. So the idea here is that throughout this module, you learn to control your psychic heart, but to do this, we must first heal and strengthen it.